Okay, these are working with problems 11 and 12, and we're going to go 11 to 20 on this video. Okay, so solving this equation right here, I've got to get the absolute value by itself. So my first step is I'm going to subtract 13 from both sides. Then I got to get the absolute value by itself, so I got to get rid of the negative in front, so I'm going to divide by -1. Now I go through two cases. Now if this was equal to -7, then I'd have no solution. But I got to do either 2x minus 3 equals +7 or 2x minus 3 equals -7. So those are my two choices. Now I'm going to solve each of these. So I get x equals 5. So that was D. And then when I add 3, I'll get -4. Divided by 2, I get -2. Okay, x-intercepts. I need to factor this. Now be careful. This is the one that's really common for students to not factor correctly. When you factor it, I need two numbers that multiply to give me -6. It's multiplying to give me a negative. So it means one side's positive, one side is negative. So that's where a big mistake is made. A lot of people think it's -2 and -3. That would give me +6. So, or they think, there's going to be +2 times +3. So we have to be careful, particularly if that was -5x. So when you factor this, this factors to x plus 6 times x minus 1. I got two numbers that multiply to give me -6. 6 times -1. And then if I look at my inside and outside terms, 6x minus x gives me 5x. Now when I solve this, I need to find out where this equals 0. So I do x plus 6 equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0. So I get x equals -6. And when I solve this one, I get x equals 1. And those are my two solutions. Okay, problem 13. We're looking for parabolas that open downward. So the general form of a parabola, when you're looking at them, there's different ways. When we have it in vertex form, we'll have it with as ax minus h squared plus k. But the big thing is what causes them open downward is when the square term ends up being a negative. That's what causes down. So we have a negative right here, and we have a negative out here. So these answers were B and E. Now this one gets a little tempting, but when I square a negative, it becomes positive. I got to think about what is x going to have. On problem number 14, I'm looking for the different forms of the equation. Well, first thing I'm going to do is notice my vertex is at -5, 4. So this graph has been shifted to the right 5. A vertex is at +5, -4. My mistake. +5, -4. So if I go over and I look at my equation right here, it's been shifted to the right 5 and down 4. So one form of the equation is going to be some a times, so it went to the right 5, it's -5, and then it went down 4 is -4. It's parabola, so we have a square. So that would be D. The other one is to use the intercepts. I have an intercept there, intercept there. This is at x equals 3, and this one was x equals 7. Well, when I plug it into an equation, when I plug in 3, I should get y equals 0. When I plug in 7, I should get y equals 0. That works with B. So the correct answer there would be B and D. This one, if you had this answer, the parabola would have been on the other side, because then it would be -7 and -3. Okay, question 15. We're going to try to find the vertex of the parabola. So this means we're going to go through, you could do it two different ways, actually, this problem. You could factor it, find your x-intercepts, and then average them. But most of these problems are going to be done with completing the square. So I'm going to just do it by completing the square. First step, add 5. So you get the x's alone by themselves. Then I'm going to take half of this term, half of 4, and then square it and add it to both sides. So added 4 over this side, got 9. This factors to x plus 2 times x plus 2, becomes x plus 2 squared. then I can subtract 9. So my vertex is going to be the opposite of this term, so it'd be -2, -9. The answer there was C. Okay, another one, getting into vertex form. First step, subtract 1. Then I'm going to factor out the 2 because I got to get x squared just by itself. I have x squared. When I factor out 2, this becomes 6x. I left a little space here so I can complete the square. So I'm going to take half of -6. Half of -6 is -3. And square it, I'd be adding 9 here. So I'm going to add 9. When I add 9 here, I actually added 2 times 9. So I really added 18. So I got to add 18 to the other side. So 18 minus 1 is 17. This factors to 2 times x minus 3 squared. Move the 17 to the other side. And the answer there was D. Okay, question 17. Find the parabolas that have exactly one intercept. Well, the easiest way to think about it is this is our general form of parabola. So we're going to have only one intercept if the parabola has not been shifted up or down. So that means this term would equal 0. So you're not going to see a k term. So if I notice that, I know immediately that E only touches one spot. This one was shifted up 9. This one's shifted down 2. This one's shifted down 4. You know, just based on the format where you have a square. Now this one, you may think it's always been shifted up 1, but it doesn't have something as a perfect square. See the square with the x's. All the x's are squared. This x is not squared, but this one does factor to x minus 1 times x minus 1, which can be written as x minus 1 squared. So usually when you see this problem, you'll see one that's going to be of this kind of format and one that may be of this kind of format. Now I want to know which two equations will have the same parabola. Now there's a couple ways to do it. This is one of the harder ones. So what you have to do is you got to find two of them that match. Now these two are kind of unique. These are all in graphing form. So either A or C is going to be one of your answers, and then it's going to match either B, D, or E. So now I'm going to have to go over test things. So the easier one to complete the square on would be C. So I'm going to complete the square on it, subtract 2. I'm going to add 4 to both sides. That gives me y minus 2, y plus 2. Y plus 2 is equal to x plus 2 squared. So that means the equation for this one would be, would end up being y is equal to x plus 2 squared minus 2. That is not any of my choices. So that means since nothing matched him, I know he's out. So good chance it's going to be this guy then. So I'm going to factor out the negative. So this is the way this one kind of works. I'm going to subtract 2, factor out -1, took half of 4. Remember, factor out -1, this becomes positive. Half of 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So I actually added -4 to the other side, which means that this one, my writing kind of messed it up a little bit. Let's erase all the ink on the slide. We end up with y minus 6 equals -x minus 2 squared. If I add the 6, I'll get D. Okay, now that might be too hard for you to do, so your other choice is to multiply these out. Do x minus 2 times x minus 2, multiply it out, gather your terms. Here you would do the same thing, x plus 2 times x plus 2, in parentheses, then distribute the negative across. Eventually you'll find it's going to match one of the other answers, which is actually A. So this one had the answers of A and D. Okay, 19 and 20 deal with a little bit of geometry. First of all, I'm trying to figure out what x is. So I look at my parallel lines, and I draw in kind of the angles that form where x is. Okay, and my parallels. So this is how we have things. So now, this P equals 121, it corresponds with this angle up here. So that's 121. Now 121 plus x form a straight angle. So they're a linear pair. Therefore, x plus 121 has to equal 180. And it's because x is supplementary to angle P. So when I look those together, my correct answer here would have been E. On question 20, I'm going to use the idea of the sum of the angles in the triangle. And the thing is with the parallel lines, we really don't have to need them at all. All we need is really this line right here, because 65 plus this angle has to add to 180. So 180 minus 65 makes this angle 115. And then I have a triangle right here. Or I could slide the 115 up and the 38 up and get them to match. But I really don't need to. I just have to use the sum of the angles in the triangle. So 115 plus 38 plus x equals 180. Simplifying, I got 153 plus x equals 180. Subtract 153 from both sides, and I get 27. Okay, that was your next set. The next video would be problems 21 to 30.